In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front wheel hub and bearing assemblies with the ABS sensors on this Ford F-350. Located behind your front brakes, let's get started. With the truck safely raised and supported, let's remove the wheel. Some wheels may have a center cap like this one, others might not. If yours does, all you need is a little pry bar or screwdriver to pop it out. It should have a cutout, so just look around to find it and pry it right off. That'll expose all 8 21mm lug nuts. So with a 21mm socket, remove them all. Now remove the wheel and set it aside. With the wheel turned in all the way, we have much better access to the two 21mm bolts mounting the caliper and bracket assembly onto the front knuckle. Let's remove both of these and remove the caliper off of the rotor. I'm actually going to leave this one threaded in just a few turns so I can hold the caliper and bracket while I remove the bottom one. Take this one out completely, set it aside, pull out the top bolt, and remove the caliper and bracket assembly with the pads and everything. A lot of times these rotors will seize on, so when you go to remove it, it's not going to want to come off. In that case, you could use a hammer, tap it, and then take it off. For me, it looks like it is not seized. I also did spray some rust penetrant right in between the lug studs and the holes on the rotor. Wiggle this and take it off. All right. Looking behind the fender liner, you'll see where the ABS sensor wire gets connected to the vehicle side harness. Let's pop this off of the frame so we can have better access at unhooking it. Use a trim tool and just slide it out. Well, sometimes it breaks, that's okay. Right up here is the lock that you have to press on to unlock the ABS sensor. Okay, there we go. Let's unclip it off of the front control arm. One more spot on the same control arm. Now use an 8mm socket and remove the two bolts holding these two little brackets onto the lower spring support. One more at the top of the knuckle. At the front of the knuckle, let's remove the outer tie rod stud from the knuckle so we can swing this back and forth freely and so that we can make more space for us to work. It does have a cotter pin that I'm going to have to remove. I'm using some cutters to straighten it out and hopefully pull it through. A lot of times these get stuck on here and we'll have to break it if that's the case. Well, mine's not budging, so I'm going to hammer a 21mm socket right over this and blast it off. With that removed, I'm going to put it back a few threads so that when we hammer the knuckle to break the tie rod stud free, it doesn't fall off completely, but rather gets held on by the nut. With that loosened up, remove the nut, pull the tie rod out. Let's get the locking hub off. Use a T27 socket to remove all three fasteners. There we go, pry it away and slide it out. Right in there, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a snap ring that holds the axle onto the hub. We have to get some snap ring pliers back there and make sure there's some heavy duty ones because these snap rings are pretty tough. Remove that and then slide the snap ring out so that we can unlock the axle from the hub. I wiped the grease out a little bit so I can keep my pliers clean and so I can see better what's happening in here. I have the pliers ready. Let's put them on the snap ring and remove it. My pliers slipped off, but I got the snap ring off. I'm going to use a magnet to fish it out the rest of the way. There it is. If you turn the knuckle on the backside, you'll see the 4 mounting nuts holding the wheel bearing and hub on. Now, right now you only see 2 because the other 2 are on the other side of the axle. So let's take these out. Once again, 21mm socket, and then we'll move to the other side. Now what you want to do is tap the wheel bearing side to side. I'm choosing to use a dead blow hammer so that I can be a little bit more gentle with it. But if needed, what you can do is put an air chisel on the back side where the mounting nuts were, so put them back on, and with an adapter that goes over the mounting nuts, chisel forward so that you can actually vibrate the wheel hub out of the knuckle, or just tap it. There it is. Let's prepare our wheel bearing for installation, and all that entails is installing the new studs that are provided right into the wheel hub, and then we have an O-ring to put right around the base of it so it can seal up on the knuckle. Optional but recommended, apply some anti-seize to the threads that are going to go into the hub. This is going to prevent rust, but also will allow them to thread on quite a bit easier. I'm also going to apply it to the area that goes through the knuckle, but not yet. I want a clean grip on this with my pliers when I install the studs into the wheel bearing. The real torque on these is going to come from putting the mounting nuts on the end and torquing them down onto the knuckle. So for this, all you need is to snug them down into the bearing. So take some pliers, and if they're adjustable, adjust them accordingly so you can get a good grip on these. Just give them a quick snug. That's all you're going to need for this. Like I said, the mounting nut from the other side is going to do all of the tightening. There. The pliers are slipping, so that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm just using a pry bar to hold this steady. That's it. As for the O-ring, it goes right into this groove. I'm going to put a little bit of silicone paste on here so I can allow it to slide in a lot easier. Silicone paste is also rubber friendly, so it's not going to damage anything. Slide this O-ring right over. Make sure it's fully seated in its groove. And just as a final touch, I'm going to cover the part that goes through the knuckle with anti-seize on these bolts. That way it is less likely to get stuck in the future if I ever have to pull this wheel bearing out again. So next I want to coat this in some anti-seize, that way it doesn't corrode in the future. And I'm going to put a little bit of silicone paste right in here so that the O-ring that sits around the wheel hub can also slide in and seal up. If all you have is regular grease, you can use that. That's totally fine, as long as this is coated to prevent corrosion. Let's apply some anti-seize to the outer surface of this knuckle where we cleaned up. We don't want any rust building up here, so just keep it a nice thin layer and coat it all with anti-seize. Typically, this is when you would put on a backing shield as well. My truck does not have this anymore. So I'm going to take the wheel bearing and slide it right in. With the ABS wire out of the way, you can help it along with a rubber mallet just to fully seat it. As long as that O-ring goes over the lip and into its groove, perfectly fine. Now let's go on the back side and start on the mounting hardware. With these started on, let's snug them up. Now that they're all started and snugged, the torque for these is 133 foot-pounds. We're going to go in a cross pattern to make sure everything is fully seated as it should be. Once again, 133 foot-pounds. Double check them if you want. I know all of mine are tight, so I'm going to move on. It's time to install that snap ring that locks the axle onto the hub. So get your snap ring on the pliers and put it right on where it belongs. I'm going to use the help of a screwdriver to push it in all the way as I expand it. Otherwise it's refusing to seat. There we go. Sometimes it's quite difficult, honestly. I put a lot of force into that one. Now this is actually not fully seated. I'm going to take that same screwdriver and poke it in so that it actually locks in. And the other side looks like it did actually seat. You should be able to spin it around like this without it popping out. All right, that looks seated to me. So we are good to go. While I'm here, I'm going to grease up the axle splines a little bit, as well as the splines on the hub, just so that when the locking hub goes in, it can slide in easily and mesh with all the splines. You really don't need a lot on here. You just need enough to coat things so that, like I said, things can mesh properly. I'm gonna coat the outside here as well. There's an O-ring on the locking hub that's gonna slide on. I'm going to wipe off this outer area where the bolts go. There's supposed to be a gasket. It is currently stuck to the locking hub, which is fine. It didn't tear. If it tore, I would have wanted to replace this. Optionally, in a pinch, you could use some RTV, but a gasket is preferred. So slide this locking hub in. There's that O-ring that needs to seal up. You're gonna have to most likely spin this a little bit so you can get all the splines lined up. Okay, there we go. Spin the axle. Okay, there we go. Now it's got a couple pins. Line this up. Press it all the way through. If while you're trying to put this in, it just doesn't seem like it wants to slide in all the way, but you feel that it did engage with all of the splines, what you can do is you can lock it and then push it in while moving this around. Eventually, it should slide right in, and the fact that it's locked means that it's actually going to want to spin everything at the same time so it can stay meshed together. Then you can unlock it, drive it in the rest of the way, and let's put in the bolts. Get that T27 socket on. These are very small, so once you bottom them out, snug them at most 1/8 of a turn. That's it. Let's resecure our ABS wire first on the knuckle. Snug this up, and keep in mind it's a very small bolt, so don't tighten it up too much. Loop it around the shock absorber, and 2 bolts hold it on the differential right by the spring. Make sure the retainer is positioned flat and tighten these up. Just give them a little bit extra, and that's good. It is normal for these to want to move around here. A retainer on this control arm. Over here, you're going to have to reuse the old retainer that came off of the old wire. So clip the new wire back into it and secure it. Now take the electrical connector and plug it in to the vehicle side harness. Make sure that clicks and lock it onto the frame. Let's get the tie rod stud back through the knuckle. Snug it up, and then the torque for this is 85 foot-pounds. That's 85, but this being a castle nut, you have to continue tightening to line up the cotter pin slot. You never want to loosen these, even if it's close. For me, it actually would take just a little bit extra to get it to line up with the next slot, so I'm going to do just that. That right there is spot on. I'm going to put a new cotter pin in. Even if your old one is in good condition, you always want to install a new one. Stick it through, and we're going to bend it over to lock it in. Apply some anti-seize to the surface so that it doesn't corrode in the future, and try to avoid getting it on the lug studs. If you get it on a little bit, that's okay, you can wipe it off. Now take your rotor and slide it over the hub. Push it on all the way. To ensure that it stays securely mounted on here, I'm going to use 2 lug nuts and bottom them out up against the rotor so that it doesn't move around. Now take your caliper bracket assembly, slide it back over the knuckle. Have at least 1 mounting bolt ready so that as soon as you line it up, you can thread it on and it'll hold it on for you so you can install the other one. With both started, snug them up. The torque on both of these is 166 foot-pounds. Let's get the wheel on. Install all 8 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern to seat the wheel evenly, and then also in a cross pattern, we'll torque them to 165 foot-pounds. Once again, 165 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Here we go. Double check them if you want. I'm sure that mine are tight. So now, because I had this cover, I'm going to put this back on, line it up, if yours had it, with the lug nuts, and then tap it on. There you have it. Take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.